Shabbat Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone for teaching us His truth. Salutations to the sincere Akim and Aquaf that may listen. May the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Raquai. I'm back in here with another quick and Lord's will is always an edifying lesson. And today's lesson is going to be the woman who cries out and Susanna, right? And what I want to do is go through a quick story in Luke, the 18th chapter, and kind of parallel that with the elect of today, what they're doing in this time, and how much Yahweh Shai's intervention is strongly needed in this time, right? Because the scriptures also say that, to roughly paraphrase, if Yahweh Shai doesn't come back, there would no there would no flesh be saved, to roughly paraphrase, right? So before I get into that quickly, I just wanted to bring up the word cry in the etymology online. So it says yell something out, utter, beg, implore, speak earnestly or loudly, advertise by calling out, to wail, shriek. Let's see what else we have here. To squeal like a pig. Let's see. To call for the help of queerities. I'm not sure what does that word mean? Roman citizens in their peacetime functions. Okay. Shed tears, so vehement, inarticulate sound, weep inordinately, right? So, there's a cry for help, right? Because, our people are in a condition where, we're being taken over by these other nations, and only a specific group of people, the elect would be crying out, for the Lord to actually come back and actually save them and deliver them out of this situation where we're constantly being bombarded by the unrighteous decrees of Esau and these other nations, whether it be Moab and Ammon and so on and so forth, right? So what I want to do is go to Luke, the 18th chapter. Okay, so this is Luke chapter 18. I'm going to start at verse 1. And one day, Yahushua told his disciples a story to show that they should always pray and never give up. Verse 2. There was a judge in a certain city, he said, who neither feared the Most High nor cared about people. A widow that city came to him repeatedly, saying, "Give me justice in this dispute with my enemy." The judge ignored her for a while, but finally he said to himself, I don't fear the Most High Yahweh or care about people, but this woman is driving me crazy. I'm going to see that she gets justice, because she is wearing me out with her constant requests. Verse 6, it says, Then the Lord said, Learn a lesson from this unjust judge. And verse 7, even he rendered a just decision in the end. So don't think the Most High will surely give justice to his chosen people who cry out to him daily, day and night. Slaku, will he keep putting them off? It says, I will tell you, he will grant justice to them quickly. But when the Son of Man returns, how many will find on the earth who have faith, right? So, this is just to goes to show the importance of prayer, and like just as simple as like for me, for example, before I leave the house, I try to make sure I pray, the Lord protects the coming in and the going out of my day to day, right? Because these there are spirits that are creative for vengeance, and in a time of tribulation, and of the times of what's to come, we want the Lord to have mercy on us and protect us from these perils that are going on, right. So there's a scripture, I think, in Thessalonians that talks about praying without ceasing, right? So always making sure the prayer game stays high up, right? Because you know, Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai is offers, a sanctuary of protection, right? Through all this, different devices that are laid out for us by Esau and these other nations to, constantly entrap our people, right? But, because they're not in a spirit of crying out, they've neglected the ways of the Most High. They're not actually trying to improve themselves and cleanse their ways and so on and so forth. They don't want to be helped, right? So essentially they're kind of like allowing another man to defile them, right? Defile their temple with other philosophies and so on and so forth, right? So let's get Ezekiel. Okay, this is Ezekiel chapter 9, verse 4, and it reads, and the Lord said unto him, Go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and cry for the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. And to the others he said, Mine hearing, go he after him through the city, and smite. Let not your eye spare, neither have pity. Slay utterly old and young, both maids and little children and women, but come not near the man, any man upon whom has the mark, and begin at my sanctuary. Then they began at the ancient men which were before the house, right? And this is a mark that is completely different from when you read Revelation chapter 13, verse 16. That mark in Revelation chapter 13, is referring to a device that's implanted in your skin, right? It's known as the charagma, right? Which is, the CH to the IP, right? And there's a bunch of companies that are trying to put forth this technology to actually essentially defile the Lord's woman, right? Defile the elect, right? The scriptures talk about our bodies are a temple. But this mark in particular in Ezekiel 9 and 4 is different. The point I wanted to make was this mark is a mark of exemption known as the Thawa, right? And that is something that we hope and pray that the Lord protects us during these times, right? Because we're crying out for the abominations that are in the midst of in the midst of Babylon, because our people are in a completely desolate state, and about I've noticed in some of my travels, I've noticed a bunch of our people are constantly making covenants with these other nations, and these other nations are constantly always getting an upper hand over them, right? Because they cling on to them, and like for example, I noticed here in the islands, they cling on to the help and the assistance of these other nations, such as the so-called Chinese, so-called Japanese. And what they do is they come into these islands that have rich in all these different resources, and they take control of these resources, right? And it leaves the locals, the Israelites, with nothing, right? And so, they don't get employment, they don't get benefits. You literally, when you talk about Lazarus and the rich man, it's honestly, it's honestly exemplifies that parable to the T, because our people are just getting the crumbs. When you read about Luke, the 16th chapter, the parable with Lazarus and the rich man, we're honestly just getting the crumbs off the rich man's table, right? So it's not that much to actually for our people to sustain themselves, but our people are crying onto the other nations, rather than actually seeking the Lord's help to actually help us and bind us up, right? So I just wanted to touch on that real quick to actually differentiate the mark between on in Revelation chapter 13 versus this mark that is spoken of in Ezekiel chapter 9, right? But also showing the parallels between the uh, the woman, the woman that was spoken of in the parable. And yes, the woman was crying out, and that's one of the things that's written in Deuteronomy 22, when a woman is in trouble, right? When a woman gets raped, right? Right now, these other nations, and Esau wants to do this with the Lord's woman, right? Because he wants to put his sea hip inside of the Lord's woman, right? And defile her, right? So in the spirit, this is what's going on, and the Lord's woman, representing the hopeful elect, want to actually are actually in a spirit of crying out, so the Lord, their husband, can come and save them, right? The Most High Yahweh through His Son Yahweh Shai, right? This is why divine intervention is so and greatly needed in these times, right? Because wickedness has constantly multiplied on the earth, right? So let me just get a couple more precepts, but hopefully all this is kind of like, balancing and making sense to you, few brothers and few sisters. Like, I'm just paralleling this with, us being the Lord's woman. Hopefully the Lord has mercy on us, right? And, actually understanding when a woman, an actual woman, is in trouble, she cries out for help, seeking mercy, so she's not put to death, right? So she essentially she remains blameless, right? Scriptures talk about that too. Um, let's get a let's go to Judges. Okay, this is Judges chapter 6. I want to start at verse 1. I want to jump down to the points really in 6. And the Israelites did evil in the Lord's sight. So the Lord handed them over to the Midianites for 7 years. The Midianites were so cruel that the Israelites made high places for themselves in the mountains, caves, and strongholds. Whenever the Israelites planted their crops, uh, marauders from Midian, Amalek, and the people of the east would attack Israel, camping in the land and destroying the crops um, as far away as Gaza. They left the Israelites with nothing to eat, taking all the sheep, goats, cattle, and donkeys, right? That's very interesting too, because that in the spirit, that's actually happening um, today in, your different tribes where you're actually situated at. Like, I'll give an example of this actually. There's a documentary I was watching, and it was going into the company, the gas company known as Shell. Now, for brothers who don't know, Nigeria. So there's a lot of Israelites that are located on the western coast of Africa, right? On the western coast of Africa, in a country known as Nigeria, there's a region in Nigeria known as the Ogoni land. So that's Ogoniland, right? And this particular region, it has a plethora um, reserves of oil, right? Nigeria is very, very well known for that. So just to make a long story short, the company known as Shell essentially they get into line with the Nigerian government, and they begin to extract the resources, the oil from Nigeria, to actually, to make a profit. And what ends up happening, they were they were polluting the land. The company was, they were polluting the land, and a lot of the pollution was highly carcinogenic, causing cancer essentially, right? And through this, you know, protesters, they were coming up, they were like getting all feisty, and they were saying like, yo, we don't want these people, we don't want these people plundering the plundering the land, right? Because they're constantly defiling the land, right? And the shell company, they ended up buying off and paying off the Nigerian military and using our own people to slaughter our own people, right? So I just thought that was very, 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 very interesting. And this happens, and this is constantly happening in the spirit when you look at a lot of these companies ran by Esau or Moab, but mostly Esau, I would say. That happens, they go into the respective tribe lands, whether it's in Nigeria. I think there's companies that they extract cobalt in like Congo or Uganda, somewhere like that, to make the electronic vehicles. There's British Petroleum, there's Exxon Mobil. They were extracting lots and lots of oil in Venezuela and Guyana, and they were leaving the people with nothing. Just like I'm reading right here in the time of Judges, right? So it's so spiritual of what's going on in your respective tribe lands, right? Because this is what it's exactly what's happening, right? But on the flip side, our people are going off, right? Just like our people are going off today. Anyways, don't want to make this too long, but I'll read verse 5. But hopefully, this is all piecing together and making sense. Verse 5, and it reads, "Then the enemy hordes coming with the livestock and tents were as thick as locusts. They arrived in droves of camels, too numerous to count, and they stayed until the land was stripped bare," right? So this is exactly in the spirit of what's going on. Salakia for the noise. I want to read that again. Verse 5, and it says, "And the enemy hordes coming with the livestock and tents were as thick as locusts. They arrived in droves or camels, too numerous to count, and they stayed until the land was stripped bare." And this is exactly what's actually happening to our people today. Even in like where I am, like right now, a lot of these companies, they're coming in and they're stripping the land of all its natural resources, right? And this is what you need to actually create a booming economy. But people make a covenant with heathens, and this is what happens. Verse 6, here's the point I really wanted to touch on was so Israel was reduced to starvation by the Midianites. Then the Israelites cried to the Lord Yahweh for help, right? And when you read later on in the story, the Lord raises up a judge named Gideon to rescue them from the Midianites. But our people were going off, they were worshiping all these towers of Baal, right? And they were completely transgressing against the Most High, right? But I just wanted to touch on that. As a matter of fact, let me get this last precept here, because I was just trying to go into the parallels between a woman crying out versus and how that's happening in the spirit, with the elect today. Right? Susanna chapter 1, verse 41, and it reads, "Then the assembly believed them, that those that were the elders and judges of the people, so they condemned her to death. Then Susanna cried out with a loud voice and said, O everlasting power, Yahweh, thou knowest the secrets and knowest all things before they be." Verse 43, "Thou knowest that they have borne false witness against me. Behold, I must die, whereas I never did such things as these men have maliciously invented against me. And the Lord Yahweh heard her voice. Therefore she was led to be put to death, and the Lord raised up the Holy Spirit of a young youth who was named whose name was Daniel, who cried out with a loud voice, I am clear from the blood of this woman, right? And one of the reasons I wanted to bring out this quick um chapter, well, quick, precept in this chapter, was because, Susanna was in a situation where, she was falsely accused. And what did she do? She prayed to the Lord, that, to rescue from her this situation, right? And just to parallel this with what's going on in the spirit and what the elect are doing, crying out, that, the Lord puts his thought on us and will have mercy upon us, in his time of judgment, right? Because, you know, we can't navigate this place without the Lord, right? And this is what our people are trying to do, you know. But anyways, I just thought I would touch on those couple things. I might do another lesson in regards to Susanna because there's more to the story. But as always, Yahweh Rataza, this video was edifying, and I just like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, Bashim Rakakadash, the honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone for teaching us his truth. Until next time, I say Shalom, or Shabbat Shalom.